What's up, everybody? Hello, friends. There's no Joel here. We have no Joel. So, guess who's taking over? It's me, and we got Spencer, and we got David. And good news, everybody. So, I think some of you know because you follow us on Twitter at WinDaily Sports, at Tee Off Sports, at Deep Dive Golf, and at Sia Najad that we had a different winner last week, and it was Team Sia Audience. And I'm going to give the audience credit because you all know that you're doing most of the picks. I may veto one here or there, but you all, team audience, before I even introduce anybody, I want to make sure that you all know you get to pick the draft order. So everybody that's already in here, and it's a lot of you. Hello, Byron. Hello, Carmen, Ed. We see everybody. Hi, Zach. Tell us where you want to pick. First, second, third, or fourth. You're not teamed up with me. It's just the three of us in the audience. So you guys get your own team, and you're going for two in a row. Let me ask you this. Let me introduce David first. David, do you think the audience has ever won two in a row? I'm not asking that disparagingly. It's just a question.
I don't know if they've ever won ever. Maybe.
Spencer would know the answer to this question. Spencer, what's the answer to that question?
I'm bringing it up right now. I can give you the answer in a second. Yes. Yeah, they won the Honda and the API in 2022.
So that would have been back-to-back wins then.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it, audience. Well done. It's been about a year, so we got to step up our game, or you got to step up your game a little bit. But everybody, welcome to the PGA Draft Cast, brought to you by WinDaily Sports, of course. Joel, a little under the weather, so I'll be taking over the intro duties, but we really want to cut to the chase. But before we do that, I had a nice DFS week last week. Almost took down the PME. I think I finished 7th, which was, a nice payout. I actually thought in match play, I thought I had it because I had Cam Young and Sam Burns in the final two. I forgot that the consolation bracket was actually going to be picking up points too. So here I was thinking I was going to pass 3 or 4 people, maybe 5 on my way to a second or a third place, but didn't turn out that way. 7th place, I'll take it. Spencer, how is everything going? How was the match play? It's such a weird event, right? So it's one of those, it can be very hit or miss. Did you hit? Did you miss?
The match play is my favorite event. So it's sad to see it off the schedule. And I'm up about 20 units over the last 4 years of playing that tournament. I made about 3.2 units. I had all these rollover bets going on Cameron Young throughout the round. So if he could have beaten Sam Burns in the final, it would have been about a 10-unit win for me. Instead, it ended up being roughly a 3.2 sort of win. So fun tournament. Hope it's back on the schedule. It's great at Austin Country Club. Sad to see it go if it is gone.
And David, I want to ask you how your match play went, but I also want to ask you, you just recently qualified for something, correct? You're kind of you're over in New Zealand. I don't know that you have DraftKings. You have your own sort of DFS format over there, but it's not DraftKings per se. But my understanding is that you have qualified for something quite big from a DFS standpoint and relating, of course, to PGA. What is it?
Yeah, so very, very good week at the Punta Cana. Very close to taking out a few showdowns, but most importantly, won a satellite qualifier to the Masters, which is one of only 10 tickets. So I'll be going against 9 other teams for 20k prize pool with 10,000 to first place. So in terms of New Zealand DFS and Australia DFS, that's basically as big as it gets. To put it in perspective, the qualifiers have about 240 people in them and they're $10 entries. So to turn that into potentially 10 grand will be a very, very nice return. But no DraftKings as of yet. I am still lobbying to have them bought here. I think it's just fear of some of the regulation, which I know that they've really struggled with in the States to spread and get live in many of the different states, depending on what their legislation allows. And unfortunately here in New Zealand, maybe not unfortunately, but it's basically fair game. We can play DFS, we can gamble online, we can go to international bookmakers. There's lots of different options for people who are pursuing those routes. And unfortunately, I don't think DraftKings have really caught on that. There's nothing to prevent them coming here. So rumor is they're moving to Australia very, very shortly, and then coming across to New Zealand. So all of you DraftKings players, watch out. I may very, very soon be in the same contests going head-to-head with you guys.
Well, that's one spot taken inside the top 10 or 20 pretty much on a weekly basis in our single entries. Let me ask one question before we get to the course breakdown. Spencer, I want to ask this to you. because for whatever reason, there are people who are like, you know what, I'm just not excited about this one. I'm just going to go over and wait to the Masters because we're going to have these awesome tournaments and we got these awesome players and the live guys are coming back. It's going to be really interesting. All of that is true. But what's not true is that we can't have some fun and make a lot of money in these non-designated events with these quote unquote watered down fields. I can tell you, Spencer, before I get to your answer, I've been doing even better in the non-designated events than the majors, or like, let's say the designated ones. The Masters next week, of course, will be our first major. But what say you on the quote, lesser talent, watered down field? I mean, you are somebody that has been, your record is so pristine from a just betting standpoint over the last 3 or 4 years. Does it make a difference to you that it's the Valero versus the Masters? I know that sounds like a crazy question, but I have to get an answer.
I approach everything from a statistical perspective with golf, and even like Sia, you and I have talked about it before. I don't have the prototypical background of somebody who played high school or college golf. Like, everything that I approach with it comes from a mathematical edge of what I can find. And I have happened to find over the years that it's a lot of times these watered down tournaments where you can get your biggest advantage. Like, if you look, and the Masters is kind of a bad example of this because it's a 88, 89 person tournament, so it's as reduced as it can be. And the problem is the bottom end of the field are all the champions that are like 80 years old at this point. They probably don't have a legitimate chance to win it. And then you have all your good players coming. But even if you look at a generic tournament that you want to throw out there, it kind of holds the same principle at the end of the day with it. It's where it's star versus star. You get a lot of these prices in the matchups and in different sectors of the market where I think the hold percentage happens to be a little bit bigger. And, if you look at this tournament, look, if you can find an edge, I think this is where it happens, because it's much more likely a player, and I don't want to just start randomly throwing names out there, but it's much more likely that a player in that lower $7,000 section, if we just want to use a generic name for that, ends up winning this tournament. Maybe you can find a head-to-head matchup of those players. And it's kind of like the age-old thing to where all the money ends up counting the same with it. Like, if you win $10,000 in the Valero, it's the same as winning $10,000 in the Masters. So I think from a handicapping perspective, and at least trying to put your best foot forward with it, there should be no reason to take your foot off the pedal with this tournament.
Absolutely. And I actually want to get to the draft, and I want to get the course breakdown before we do that. My understanding, and this is from Ed, who I think is sort of leading team audience, at least with respect to the draft order, is that the audience is going to be picking first, that David is going to be picking second. I'm going to be picking third, which of course puts Spencer in that back-to-back of the snake, picking fourth. So we'll end up setting up the lineup like that. But Spencer, before we actually draft, and by the way, for those of you that are new to the show, at the end of the show, we're going to give out some first round leaders. Of course, our outrights and some of our head-to-head matchups, those are actually in the Win Daily Sports Discord. We're putting them in that separate tab. As everybody who's a Win Daily Sports subscriber knows, we have the golf tab where we're just talking DFS the whole time. But then we have the betting tab too, where guys like myself and Spencer and David, among others, by the way, are putting in their actual bets. So keep that in mind. We'll have our outrights in there, but on this show, we'll have our first round leaders. And for those of you that are new, we happen to hit these at a rate that just doesn't really make that much sense. Joel picked himself and withdrew. That's an inside joke. You got to be a fan of the PGA Draft Cast to know that. Stick with us. You'll get all the inside jokes. But Spencer, let's get the course breakdown.
So we have TPC San Antonio. It's going to be a little bit over 7,400 yards, par 72. It's kind of what we keep getting in these tournaments. Bermuda greens overseeded with Bent/POA. Last 5 winners of the tournament. JJ Spawn last year at 13 under. Jordan Spieth at 18 under. Corey Connors 20 under. Andrew Landry 17 under. Kevin Chappell 12 under. It's kind of an eclectic group of players there. You have some stars. You have some players. I mean, I guess there was a time maybe in 2017 where Kevin Chappell was a name that I seem to think was a top 25, 30 player in the world, kind of where I am with like the Aaron Wise, Cameron Davis thing. Now, injuries obviously set him back a far ways with his game, but I don't know if you necessarily have a prototypical answer. Like, Connors is not a great putter. Jordan Spieth is a streaky putter, but he's a great putter when they start going down. And, Landry's a shorter hitter. So you kind of have it all over the map of what to expect there. I think the funniest answer is that this venue is a Greg Norman design. It has the help from Sergio Garcia. that's probably one way for the PGA Tour to stick it to Norman. But at the end of the day, it's a quality venue. I don't know if this is the perfect time to put it on the schedule. You have undulation with these greens. They are much slower than Augusta. I think that's one of the big deterrents to playing this week. The other deterrent would come down to it's just being way more challenging than it needs to be for a major prep. We see some of those around the green issues with a 3.3% increase in the impact of scoring over a typical stop on tour with that short game. I think that particular factor mixed with a 7% decrease in GIR percentage does help to make this layout, as I said, one of the more demanding tournaments yearly. For me, at the end of the day, though, it kind of comes down to quality ball striking. I think any single time that you get that stark contrast in the GIR rate that you're getting versus a typical tournament, ball striking kind of starts taking a precedence over what you want to be looking for. It's noteworthy that the par fours, some of them are challenging, mostly between that 410 to 481 range. The par fives are long. They're also challenging themselves. There's one in particular that's going to be sub 30% in birdie or better percentage. Some of those are as low numbers as you can get. And then I think the last few notable things worth noting, at least, would be there's a 4% increase when you talk about putts that occur from 5 to 15 feet for birdie. That might not sound like a lot, but it was enough for me to add a nice mixture of that combined with the short putting on these slow to average greens. And then just the proximity ranges that we're looking at from 0 to 100 yards and then every 25-yard bucket up from there. All of those ranges are 10% or over in expectation. I don't think you ever get that flat of a distribution. So quality ball striking is kind of like, obviously that was a long-winded answer that I gave, but find me the quality ball strikers who also have some semblance of that short game. Like, it's an all-around skill set that you need here. There's different factors that can go into it that we could discuss, but that's kind of the long-winded answer of it's a tough course at the end of the day.
David,
I see
ahead.
David wants to say something to that.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing which gets missed, and it came actually from Sia when you were on the First Cut podcast, and you sort of asked about the one putt percentage being such a high ranking there, and the guess was that was kind of random, and I want to speculate that there is actually a good reason for that, and it relates to what Spence was mentioning about the reduced GIR, about the emphasis around the green game, is that despite these greens being 6,500 feet on average in size, which is fairly large, is that basically every green is multi-tiered. So they're either a two-tiered green or a triple-tiered green in some situations. So what that actually leads to is that the landing area where these guys are playing their approach shots is extremely small compared to what you may suspect. They're trying to get onto the right ledge in order to be able to give themselves a shot at birdie. So that's why you're going to see that GIR is lower than usual. It's why you're going to get more around the green, and it's also why that one putt percentage of, if you are on the wrong tier, you need to lag putt very, very well in order to two putt rather than leaving yourself out there for 3 putt percentage. So I just want to put that out there because I haven't actually seen that anywhere else in the industry at the moment.
Yeah, I got to ask the question, and we can pull the board up at your leisure, fellas. And it looks like the pick is already in for the team audience. So good for team audience for being on the ball there. Don't forget, you're going to have back-to-back picks the rest of the way. So we're not just going to need one set of nominations, but we're going to need 2. But I gotta ask the question. I know this is kind of like, almost an arrogant question, or it's rhetorical. So all rhetorical questions are by their nature arrogant, but what other show is giving you Spencer's breakdown and David's follow-up? Again, it's a rhetorical question. You don't need to answer it, but I think in your head, you're saying, okay, this is kind of next level stuff. And I'm not saying we're better than other shows. We're different than other shows. That I can affirmatively say, but you're going to get Spencer's breakdown and stuff like David's follow-up, or maybe follow-up from Joel or myself, that is going to be unique to other shows. And when you see our picks, you're definitely going to see that our picks are unique. And we've all been doing really well this year. David just talked about how well he's been doing. I almost had a takedown 2 weeks ago. I came in second place out of 2,000 and change, and told you about the PMA finishing 7th. This is not me just saying, hey, we're so good at this, because sometimes we're not. I can only speak for myself. Sometimes I'm not very good at this. And sometimes I have weeks where I'm not playing well, but we're trying to give you the best information, and we're trying to give you unique lineups. And the very nature of the PGA DraftCast by its nature, it's going to give you unique lineups because we can't take the players that other people have taken. So just keep that in mind. I think this is a show that you definitely have to have in your repertoire. I know people like to listen to a lot of shows. I think you should. I think that's great. Hopefully this is going to be one of them. We have a lot of people watching. Hopefully you hit the like button. The very first pick from Team Audience is none other than Siwoo Kim. Let me comment first, and then Spencer, I'm going to kick it to you. Obviously, Siwoo is going to be a popular guy this week. For those of you that just haven't listened to any podcast or kind of studied up on this field, Siwoo is going to be popular. The percentages I'm looking at, he's kind of inside the top 3. It looks like it's Terrell Hatton, Ricky Fowler, of course, and then of course Siwoo Kim. That's fine. I don't really mind taking super chalky guys at the top, because if you think they have really great win equity, then go for it. There's obviously going to be pivots in that range, but I got to tell you, towards the top, other than Hideki, a lot of these guys have some pretty good ownership, somewhere between 15 and 25, 26. So Hideki, I'm not going to go in on. So I don't mind the Siwoo pick. I think he has plenty of upside. I'm worried a little bit about his approach play, because sometimes it can be hit or miss where everything else is great, including his course history. I will say this, though. It's why I like him as an outright at 22-1 versus maybe taking him in the top 20, because I think you can take him in the top 5, whatever. But I think he's really going to flash, or he's really going to let a lot of people down. And I think he's the type of golfer that's just what we see from him, because sometimes the ball striking isn't what it needs to be. Sorry, that's a really long answer for our first pick. We're not trying to make this show 2 hours. But Spencer, real quick, any comments on Siwoo Kim?
Siwoo Kim is number 1 in my model when I ran it this week. Obviously, there is going to be a lot of ownership. I see 25%. I've heard that people have 30% out there. So that's probably about what you're looking at. I think the one thing I would like to say very quickly to your answer, Sia, which is kind of the reason for why I like Siwoo Kim this weekend. Maybe this is one of those spots that I'd be willing to eat the ownership. And by the way, the course history is immaculate.
Yeah.
We see that, but there's a reason why the course history is immaculate, in my opinion. So he's 47th in my model in proximity over a 2-year perspective. That's the expectation in this field. He's the 47th best golfer. For the weighted proximity for this course, he is 4th overall. That's a 43 spot improvement over his baseline on any generic course. So that is a very encouraging sign for a player that I think is trending in the right direction this year. He's looked very good in tournaments, obviously. I mean, that goes without saying with some of those results that he's posted, but I love the weighted proximity. That's a very big perk that he has for himself.
Yeah. And David, I'll go to you. It's your pick, so you can obviously do your pick, but if you want to make a comment on the Siwoo Kim pick, let us know.
I think he's one of the best in the board. I particularly like the around the green stats, that if he does, as you said, get affected by the wind a bit or miss some of those greens, that I've got a bit more confidence in him getting up and down. And he had a very, very good week over in Austin, so he hasn't travelled very far to attend this week either. So I think he's a solid pick. As you'll see from the draft board, I'm going to take Chris Kirk with my initial pick. I love him within that range. I can see Spencer already shrugging, so that's always a good sign when I can steal his first pick as well. Again, it's just the all-round game for him. He can putt and chip, which is going to be essential in my opinion for success this week. His approach metrics are very, very good, and his driving accuracy is excellent as well. And I think that gets missed a little bit around TPC San Antonio. That's not necessarily the rough is actually the least penal of any course on the PGA Tour all season. So bear that in mind. The problem comes when you do miss big is that you'll end up with double and triple bogeys very, very quickly around here. So having a modicum of driving accuracy is important to me this week. We've seen Chris Kirk overcome that hurdle and get his first win recently as well. So vibes are going to be good, and he's got 2 top 10s here in 2021 and 2018 as well.
Yeah, I mean, one last thing on him. The weighted tee to green numbers over the last 24 rounds, he's second in this field. I mean, he's one of those guys that's not super sexy, but now it is, right? Because we've seen him actually win. Like that upside that we always would have questioned, like let's say last year at this time when we were doing the Valero breakdown, which for the record, David Bileski had JJ Spawn as an outright for the Valero last year. And if memory serves, he's the defending champion here. So great stuff as usual from David. Again, his picks will be in the WinDaily Sports Discord. But listen, I like both of these picks. And it sucks for Spencer that he's 4th here, because I know he probably likes a lot of these picks too. I can tell you that I started a lineup, like one of my lineups, with Siwoo Kim, Chris Kirk, and the guy I'm going to pick, which is Matt Kuchar. And that still leaves you 72-67 which means, you go down in that low 7K range or maybe the high 6K range, and it still leaves you room to get like a mid 7K golfer. You could still really try to go into that upper 7K or flat 8K range, but I don't mind starting a lineup with Siwoo as my captain, as my top dog, so to speak. And I think you could really start in the 9K lineup and be just fine this week. And also, depending on how you construct your lineup, I don't think you need to spend all your money. Don't force, and I'm not going to say a name, but don't force like a random 10K guy because you're like, well, I have this much money left. I guess I just gotta go up here and play him. That's not how this tournament is going to work. So I'll go with Matt Kuchar. I mean, he's similar find to Chris Kirk. Obviously, the numbers aren't as good, but I think the game is coming on. The history here is good. The around the green game play and just the knowledge of this course. I think Matt Kuchar is a very sort of precise strategist. Like somebody that I would think of as like a poor man's Jordan Spieth when he has to be. Just can a very poor man's, by the way. But I just think he's a guy that can navigate this course pretty well. Not a sexy pick. I'm not super psyched about it. I would have taken Siwoo or Chris Kirk ahead of him, but this is where we are. So now, Spencer, you've got back-to-back picks. I'd love to know if all three of these guys were interesting to you or if you were going to pick them.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they're all in play. I think when you look at this tournament, and I don't want to give away too many answers to it, but there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's essentially 5 guys, $9,000 and up, that showed as a positive value compared to their price. All 3 of those players were on that short list that I would be considering. I'm going to take a very unique approach to this, and this wasn't exactly how I was anticipating starting. So I think if you were to tell me if I had the number 1 pick, I probably would have taken Siwoo Kim. That's likely where I was going to go there. So now that he's off the board, and the second pick for me probably would have been Chris Kirk. It would have been nice to plug those 2 guys together. With the $9,000 range a little bit watered down for what I think is the way I want to go, I'm going to go to the very top. I'm going to take Tyrrell Hatton. I'm going to hope that the hand is okay with him. I mean, look, if you watch what he's done recently, 24 consecutive rounds of shooting par or better. He has made 12 consecutive cuts. I think he's bringing really good form into this week. I'm going to throw away whatever that was at the match play here. I don't necessarily want to use that for anything. I didn't like him for that tournament myself personally for that. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I thought he was going to lose every single match. Like, that was a bit of a shock, but things just went wrong for him. We know he's hot-headed. When things go in the wrong direction, anything's possible. But inside the top 5 of my model, when we're looking at weighted scoring for this course, he's number 1 in my model over a 2-year perspective in strokes gained total. And then he's number 1 in my model putting on slow greens. And you kind of anticipate that when you're looking at a putting kind of a background of Hatton to begin with. But it's nice to see that he doesn't get worse on slow greens.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see his ownership as high as it was, not because he's not deserving of it.
I agree with that.
But I actually thought the hand injury, which, by the way, I'm probably mischaracterizing by even suggesting that it's an injury, but I just thought that would scare some people off, at least early, and that people would jump on. And my point is that we wouldn't see this ownership number until tomorrow, for example. And obviously, Sicily Kid, otherwise known as Stephen Plarty, he'll have the ownership article up at WinDailySports.com, but and we know that's very precise. I'm curious to see where that Tyrrell Hatton number creeps. It'll probably stay kind of where it is, I think, in that 25, 26 percentage. But you got Hatton. So, Spencer, who's next?
I'm going to go with another popular choice. Like, obviously, at some point, I'm going to have to differentiate. And I agree with everything that you just said, Sia. When I built this on Monday, Hatton was like 13%. And now I see him more in the 20% range. So, he's picked up some steam. I don't know if that's going to continue. You never know with these things. You do get these ups and downs with it. But I'm going to go to 7,600, and I'm going to take Nick Taylor. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that my model likes about him. Obviously, one of the things would not be the ownership that we're talking about here. But inside the top 10 of my model, when I look at weighted strokes gained total, he's a great win player that ranks inside the top 20 for me. And kind of just every single way that I ran it, like my numbers liked it for the most part when I got rid of the total driving from him. The weighted proximity increased by 47 spots from the numbers that I'm anticipating. I ended up taking a head-to-head wager. I'll give it out on this show. I took Nick Taylor minus 110 over Adam Schenk. I don't know if that influences the draft at all with Schenk, or I don't know what everybody's thoughts were on him, but I think the price tag on Taylor is way too cheap for a golfer for me that has like legitimate top 15 win equity in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it over the last handful of tournaments. We've seen a second place finish. We've seen a 10th place finish. We've seen a couple of missed cuts, but a lot of made cuts inside the top 35, aside from those 2 top 10s. So Nick Taylor makes sense. It's funny, David. I want to get your comments on Nick Taylor before I make my pick, because when you look at the metrics, it's really not that impressive. And it's kind of consistent with, okay, yeah, that looks like it might be Nick Taylor. That makes sense. But then again, we're seeing these high finishes. Is there a way to reconcile the idea, whether it's Nick Taylor or in general, the idea that the metrics aren't necessarily matching up to what we're seeing with some of these finishing positions?
I think that he's elevated his game, to be honest, over the last kind of 3 months. We saw that particularly at the Phoenix Open when he actually gave John Rahm like a very, very good, Scotty Scheffler, a very good run for his money. Second place there was incredibly impressive, and he played very well at the match play. Like, I mean, he pushed everybody in his group right to the end. Like, he didn't really do all that much wrong. His approach play, if you look at it over Data Golf or Rick Run Good, Fantasy National, wherever you're getting your strokes gain data, has really improved in the last 3 months. Like, I've seen some good uptick in that. And he's always been great around the green. I have him as one of the best values in that range, particularly within that 7,000 range. So I think he's a savvy pick. Very, very, very happy to take him there.
I feel like I've also made amends for calling him the worst player in the tournament last week. So Nick Taylor and I were on an even playing field now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I had to Venmo you $25 because I lost a bet, the Nick Taylor Brian Harman bet. But see, you saw my point then, at least, Spencer. Like, Nick Taylor's been pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he was just up against a juggernaut in Brian Harman, but sure. I mean, Nick Taylor's fine.
So I see Ed in here, and I'm going to make my pick, and we're going to move on to David's pick post haste. But somebody named Joe Weaver at SJ Wolves. I don't know if you guys saw this on my Twitter, but I retweeted, or I quote tweeted it. He tweeted under one of the first cut shows we did on Monday. So I quote tweeted it, and he says, I'm just going to read it really quick. He says, "I've got signs for you. Taylor Moore won 2 weeks ago when Taylor Swift opened her tour. We are in Texas this week. Guess who else is in Texas this weekend? One of the Taylors has to win. She has a lit up golf club during her show, which he provides a picture for. This cannot fail. There are 4 Taylors. There are 4 Taylors in this tournament. I feel like what he is saying is we have to bet all the Taylors, and Spencer off to a good start with Nick Taylor Swift. All right, I'm going to be really quick here. This is a popular guy. He's in the low 7K range. He's really going to help my lineup from just being able to kind of do whatever I want. I've been on this guy for a while. We've talked about him on this show quite a bit. The tee to green numbers, yep, there you go. The tee to green numbers are great. He's an accurate ball striker. His finishing positions have been good. He's a guy that is really slowly starting to emerge. And honestly, given the talent level of this field, I'm not saying he's mispriced necessarily, but we could easily see him at 7,700, 7,600. We'd be like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense for Ben Martin. And for the record, last week at Corrales, he was pretty good too, from what I recall. So he's going to be popular. He's probably going to be maybe 10% or more, which in the low 7K range, that is a recipe for disaster. But because I've been on this guy so much, I really wanted to claim him. I almost made him my first pick, but I really wanted one of those 9K guys that I like. So I got away with it. Give me Ben Martin. David, it's on you. Any comments on Ben Martin while you're at it?
I would say that he is absolutely underpriced. In terms of his DraftKings price versus his odds, he's 49th in DraftKings pricing, but he's 36 within odds markets, and his odds have shortened throughout the week as well. So he's definitely undervalued. I do think it's in this pricing. He could be the high 7K range is kind of where I expected to see him, given the form he's coming in with, given the metrics that he brings here. So I think that's a very, very savvy pick. Can I just address, I'm not in the basement of a church and I'm not drinking the communion water. I'm yet to become a reverend, but the chat is giving me a very, very hard time about having a new water bottle and losing the munition case that I was previously using to drink water from. So thank you, Back 9 Bets, Zach, Ed, Dave, everybody who's giving me a very, very hard time today. You're always very entertaining. I am going to stick around the top of the board here and take a player that I think that is sneakily like lower owned than I expected he would be, which is Davis Riley. He looks to me at the moment on my predictions to be one of the lowest owns within that 9K range, kind of tied up with him and Ryan Fox are both sitting around 15% for me, and everyone else is 18% or higher. I really like what Davis Riley's been doing in terms of turning the approach play back around of late. 19th last time at the Valspar and wasn't a complete disappointment at the match play. I mean, the match play is such a random event as well, so if a player doesn't make it out of his group, like kind of whatever. 8th at Bay Hill recently as well, another elevated event. I think that Davis Riley's playing some very, very good golf. We know that he's got a relationship with Sam Burns as well, who won last week, and he went head-to-head with at the Valspar last year in 2022. So, some good vibes obviously coming in with Sam Burns getting the victory last week as well. Seems like a good spot for Riley in my mind.
Yeah, it's funny because, Spencer, I want to kick it to you before we get the two audience picks. It looks like Højgaard is going to be one of the two picks for sure. I'm going to wait for the audience to confirm that Sam Ryder is the other one, or maybe it's Ben Griffin. I don't know. Jerry might have some issue with that, but Davis Riley, Spencer, I can't come around on him. I'm just not a Davis Riley guy. I look at the metrics. I'm not super impressed. I am impressed with David's argument, but for me, it's a no on Davis Riley. I'm curious where you stand.
It will be a no for me also on Davis Riley. And it really comes down to, I don't trust his short game here. And that's in any capacity of how you want to say that, whether that's out of the sand or around the green. I know he's trending in the right direction right now. I agree with David's point that for as many people that I've seen on him, I was surprised that the ownership wasn't higher than what it was. With that being said, though, he was one of the first guys that I probably eliminated from my player pool this week. So I'm not going to play him, but I mean, he is trending in the right direction.
And it does look like Sam Ryder is the second guy. Ivan, thanks for confirming that. But I scrolled up. I did see that Byron from Back Nine Bets, of course, Model Maniac, otherwise known as, and who was it? Zach Jeffers, nominated Ryder. By the way, I stopped in on Byron's show earlier today. He does his show right before our show, by the way. I think it's like, maybe it starts at 7. Maybe you can confirm that for us, Byron. But great show. Even if you don't have the full hour, you got to drop in on that show. Check out all the stuff he has up. It's really, really good content. I know he works with you, Spencer, over at Rotoballer a little bit too, but you can catch his free show just like you can catch this free show on the Win Daily YouTube. Really good stuff. Always stop by there on Tuesday, early evening, hit the like button, say hi in the chat, and so that he knows you're there. And then you wait for this show, which Byron comes to. So you get the whole crew here, usually including Joel and including some big guests. And of course, we're going to have a big guest next week for the Masters. All right, David, we've got Sam Ryder and Højgaard off the board. Real quick, though, let me ask you before you make your pick on Højgaard. I imagine you like him this week. I imagine you think he's a bit mispriced. Quick comment on him and quick comment on Sam Ryder before you make your pick.
I perhaps have a little bit of concern about Højgaard's around the green game. That would be my question mark. The guy's undeniably talented. The distance off the tee is incredibly impressive. Second place last week, and he will be on the PGA Tour eventually. The talent of this guy, he's 22 as well, identical twin to Rasmus. I have some concern about around the green game and the accuracy and whether this is the best course fit for him. He doesn't really strike me as a scrambler. He more probably likes a course where he can get to 20 under. I'm thinking to Vallarta, Mexico Open would be like an ideal course for Nicolai Højgaard. And same for last week. I had him a lot in DFS for Punta Cana, where it's really a driver's paradise, and that played through quite well with the second place last week. Sam Ryder, I'm a little bit more interested in. I think I've got others in that range that I am going to prefer, including my next pick, which is Brendan Todd. Brendan Todd is very, very underpriced in DFS. If we're looking at markets, I've seen him as low as 40 to 1, but he is priced at a very lowly in that 7,000 range, and I just love the value that I'm getting from him there. He's fourth for for distance from centre of fairway percentage. So when he misses the fairway, he's not going to miss big for you. He's trending in the right direction, and he's got very, very good form here. Excellent around the green game as well. So like great putting, great chipping. 27th of the players. I think that gets missed a little bit last time out. And eighth last time at the Texas Open. So he is fantastic value for me where he is priced at 7,900.
I like that. Brendan Todd hasn't gotten a lot of talk, I've noticed this week, and he certainly seems to make sense. So that's not somebody I had considered yet, but it's somebody I'm going to have to take a second look at because I do like that play. So speaking of plays that I like, so I'm considering doing something that I didn't expect to do, and I'm worried about what it's going to do to my salary, what I'm going to have left. So I'm kind of debating, but you know what? I'm just going to deal with it and just see what happens. I think this is really going to crush my salary, but I'm going to go with Ricky Fowler. It's not somebody I plan on playing a lot this week, but because a lot of my guys have been taken in that 9K range that I kind of wanted to kick my team off with, I think I'm willing to take Ricky here. And I'm just noticing, I didn't realize that was going to leave me 7,800. That's way more than I anticipated. And again, that's the Ben Martin factor kind of helping me out. But, I don't need to talk too much about Ricky. Obviously, the game is trending up. I'm not really considering one way or the other whether or not the pressure is going to be on to qualify for the Masters. Like, that's just not something that enters my mind when I pick Ricky Fowler. I just think when I look at him and I look at the metrics, he is very much viable to top 5 this thing, certainly viable to win this thing. And so it's an easy call for me because of how this board has broken. So I'm happy to take Ricky Fowler here at 10,200, in spite of the fact that he is going to be chalky. Believe me, I'll have some non-chalk coming up. Spencer, you got back-to-back picks here. You got Terrell Hatton, you got Nick Taylor. Who are the next 2 guys?
I'm going to make a little bit of a surprising pick here. So, I don't know if I necessarily need to take this player this early. I could probably have waited to go this route, but I do have concerns with all the golfers that have been taken from Ben Griffin and up at this point. So I'm going to try to lock in somebody that I would like to have, and I'm going to take Alex Noren at 8,800. And the answer I'm going to give to Noren is this: 8,800, probably for the form that he's bringing to the table, too expensive. I understand that. But when you're able to create leverage on a golfer because they're overpriced, and then you have the positive trajectory in my model that does believe he can make a run at this tournament, it's going to be your boom or bust sort of outcome that comes into play with it. But with as chalky as I've gone to start this build, I think he is the perfect person that differentiates some of that for me and gives me a name that I believe has top 20 win equity. I bet him at 46-1 this week, and I don't know exactly what to expect. Obviously, there's the downside of what he's been producing recently, but look, there's a lot to like from a statistical perspective. He's second in my model at TPC properties over the last 2 years. He's a great win player. We know that about his game. I'm going to hope that the best comes out of him this week.
Yeah, and I know you got another pick, but I know the audience was just discussing Alex Noren as well. Before you make your pick, David, a yes or no on Alex Noren?
Definitely.
Okay. Wow, that was emphatic. I was undecided on Noren. He's probably going to be left out for me. I totally get the logic there, and the fact that both of you are on him speaks volumes to me. Okay, who's after Alex Noren, Spencer?
So I think that the safest way for me to play this at this point is probably to go cheaper rather than going with the one player that I kind of want in this spot. And if he gets taken, I'll let everybody know that they took him from me. But I'm going to take Joseph Bramlett at 7,100. Feel like this, Sia, is right up your alley. A ball striker who cannot putt. I don't know what to expect with that. He's one of the worst putters in my model when you look at any way you want to run it, but great weighted scorer. The weighted proximity looks great. I'm just hoping that we can get some semblance of a putter this week for him. And look, like Corey Connors has won this tournament in the past. You can't tell me that Bramlett can't be break even with the putter and, all of a sudden give you a top 20 finish. And if he does a little bit better than that, then he makes a run at this thing.
Yeah, all I can tell you about guys like Joseph Bramlett and Robbie Shelton, who guys that I like and that are just very underappreciated ball strikers, is I'll get them through the cut. And I hit Bramlett as a first-round leader, tied for first-round leader just like 4 or 5 tournaments ago. But I'll get them through the cut, and then their putter's just such a disaster on Saturday and Sunday. Now, to your point, Corey Connors won this tournament. He's not a good putter, and any putter can be good. It's possible for 3 to 4 rounds. It's certainly possible, but man, I've just gotten so frustrated with Team No Putt with guys like Joseph Bramlett that I've tended to stay away from them. But I do like the upside of Bramlett. I don't mind him at all. All right, my pick is going to be, you want narratives. I just gave you one with Ricky Fowler and the Masters. That's what people want to talk about. How about another narrative? How about I take a guy who, for the record, I've also talked about on this show several weeks ago, and I actually had him as a 180 to 1 shot 2 weeks ago, and he was in the top 5 on a Sunday and then just kind of faded away. The narrative is, well, you don't play guys who just won. Well, I'm going to do that because I think Matt Wallace is a great pick, and I think he has really caught fire. I love where the game is at in general. We know he's a good around the green player. We know David loves Matt Wallace and is really mad about this pick. Poker skills coming through there. But yeah, I just like Matt Wallace. The weighted tee to green stuff, I'm a big fan of. He won last week. He's top 15 weighted tee to green over the last 24 rounds. Great around the green, like I said, and third here in 2021. To me, he checks all the boxes. And again, the win last week, if anything, I think that's going to help him because I think he's going to come to this soft field and be like, I think I can win again. It'd be different if he was going like right to the Masters, which I don't believe he's actually qualified for, or like a tournament that was a designated event. Then he might be, oh man, I can't win this one. I think he thinks he can win this one. And 8,500, I'd love to have him on my team. David, you hate that, right?
I totally hate that. That was my next pick. So yeah, he can totally win this thing. And I think Matt Wallace is just, he was such an incredibly talented golfer on the DP World Tour and then came across the PGA Tour and struggled a little bit since with the step up. And we've seen that multiple times with DP World Tour players, right? Like Aaron Rai comes to mind, who won like 3 times in his first 2 years on the DP World Tour, came across the PGA, and he probably would have won 10 DP World Tour events by this point, but struggled with that step up. And he's finally got across that barrier, but his game is trending for like quite some time before that, like notably 7th at the Valspar the week prior. So all the indications were very good. I think his game actually probably suits this course at TPC San Antonio more than it did at Corellas, and he's just won that tournament. So why not go with the hot hand, go with last week's winner? No brainer for me. I would have gone there too.
Love it. And Spencer, before we get to David's pick, yes or no on Matt Wallace?
I am fine with it. I don't have a problem with him.
Gotcha. Okay, so lukewarm on Matt Wallace then for Spencer. All right, David, it's your pick. You just picked Brendan Todd. Who's next?
Yeah, I'm scrambling a little bit to get my next guy in because, as I said, I was literally just about to go where Senejad did. So I think I'm going to go to Old Faithful, friend of the show, Ryan Fox, 9,000. I'm quite happy to spend up on the salary here. I'm going to have a few flyers later on. Ryan Fox, one of the most talented golfers in this field, in my opinion, still a little bit underpriced at 9,000. He's got great form coming in. His approach play is excellent. We've seen that he's managed to make that step up very, very quickly to the PGA Tour, 14th at the Arnold Palmer, for example, which I'll add, Arnold Palmer kind of similar to here in that you don't want to have that big miss off the tee. Like here, it's kind of like cactuses and shrubs and desert area. That's the trouble. And at the Bay Hill course, it's the water that becomes the issue. And he managed to finish 14th there. So he's this rare breed of like extreme driving distance, but like great touch around the greens, excellent approach play. Currently ranked 36 in the world. There's a lot to like with him.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Ryan Fox. Yes or no, Spencer, on Ryan Fox? And by the way, the audience has already started to nominate, so that's good. But you can nominate now. So yes or no on Ryan Fox, Spencer?
Yes, I like Ryan Fox. It's a completely different player. I'm not trying to make this comparison here, so I just want to preface it with that. But Fox does have that distance. I don't think distance is the only way. I know it's a long course. I think you can win this with accuracy or with distance, but it's a unique skill set to take on with this course. And it's kind of my similar thought process that I had with Joseph Bramlett, to where if you can tell me a guy can add some distance here, if nothing else, we're just talking distance. It's an intriguing play for Fox. And obviously Fox is a much better golfer if you're trying to compare apples to oranges to that.
Yeah, fair enough. The audience, I think, is already ready. Correct me if I'm wrong, audience. We don't want another gate on our hands, but it appears that Thomas Dietrich has been nominated. Thank you, Ivan and let's see, Jimmy Wagner, and Benny On from Ed and Byron has been nominated as well. So it looks like those are the 2 picks. I think that's right. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'll tell you. So Spencer, I'm going to kick this right back to you, and David, it's going to be your pick next. Neither of these guys are in my pool. Are these guys you would be willing to play in DFS or no?
I tend to think Ben On is probably a better cash game play than anything else. That's kind of like my mentality with him. Usually when there's ownership around him, I prefer to just play him for cash. He never quite gives you the upside that you hope to see. Now, Dietrich's the intriguing one for me because a very similar answer could be given there. Now, I know he came 8th last week at the Corrales. There's a lot of finishes outside of that are like 24th to 40th place. I haven't made a decision yet on Dietrich. I don't know what to necessarily think. My model loves him from a statistical perspective, but it also loves him from a statistical perspective every week. And I tend to always find myself disappointed. And it's not like this go around, we get him cheap. Like it's one thing when we're taking him at 7,200. It's another one when it's 8,400. I'm indifferent in this situation right now, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to play him. It's kind of one of those fringe players for me.
Fair enough. And David, it's your pick. If you want to comment on either Ben On or Dietrich, go ahead. But then, of course, let's make your 5th pick.
I think Dietrich's a great safe play again. I always wonder about his upside. I mean, to share that last week, I mean, on the European tour, we had Nick Barkham in my selections win at 110 to 1, and we had contenders at the other 2 tournaments as well. And I was just dreaming of a dream triple win with Dietrich being one of them at the Punta Cana, and understandably faded as per usual in the 4th round. Like, I mean, he just has such a trouble finishing tournaments off. Like, and it's like the Will Zalatoris of the DP World Tour for Dietrich, you know, just like constantly in the top 10, but never ever has managed to get across that line. And so that's my question with Dietrich would be, I think he's like a great safe play, and that like if he's in the top 20, no surprises there for me. I just really question whether he can actually get the game together on the final day to get the win. I'm quite intrigued by Benny On. I think that he's got some potential here. So for my next selection, I'm going to go with another player I'm hot on this week, Nick Hardy, who is trending well in terms of his ball striking. He's a strong driver of the golf ball. Last week, I think that his finishing position of 13th should also be read in the context of the fact he opened with a 73. So bear in mind, this was a course that was playing very, very far under par. He managed to pull it back with rounds of 69, 67, 67 to finish out the tournament. So he did find something for those last 3 rounds. I just think Nick Hardy's a better golfer than they've got him priced here. His odds have dropped quite a bit in the market as well. So there's some pretty sharp money coming his direction. But his DFS pricing is obviously set in stone. So I'll take advantage of that then.
Interesting. Yeah, Nick Hardy was a guy I had my eye on. You know, you all remember last summer, he seemed like a guy that was about to pop, and he just hasn't done it yet. So you might be early on Nick Hardy. I totally get it. I am going to go very early on somebody, and I think he was mentioned earlier in the show by Spencer. Actually, he was. I told you I'm not going to just be taking all chalk. I have a couple chalky guys in there. I'm going to go with a guy that's probably going to be 3% or less. He'll be one of the more owned guys in the 6K range, but by more owned, I mean like 2 to 3%. It's going to be Kevin Chappell. So Kevin, oh, sorry, David. Sorry about that, buddy. So Kevin, first of all, has really good course history here, but more importantly, the game is starting to come back for Kevin Chappell. Piece by piece, we're seeing the ball striking a little bit better. We're seeing the short game a little bit better. And by the way, let's look at his finishing positions as of late. At Corrales last week, T16. Well, that's pretty good. Puerto Rico Open, T15. The week before that, or maybe it was 2 weeks before that, the Honda Classic, T29, inside the top 30 at the Honda Classic. And then he missed the cut at the 18 Pebble Beach Pro-Am, but he didn't have a bad tournament. He lost a little off the tee, gained on approach, gained around the green, and lost a little bit with the putter. I'm not looking at it, but he must have missed it by 1 or 2 strokes. So Kevin Chappell's really rounding into form, and he's 6,700 in this field. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take that. He should probably be like 72, 7,300. And even there, I think he's at least a moderate value with a little bit of upside, especially when you consider his course history. So Spencer, it's your pick, but I got to hear from David because I see him doing the Spencer with every time I pick, I see him doing the Spencer, kind of squirming a little bit. You hate that I took him, don't you?
I do. You've stolen Matt Wallace from me, and they've stolen Kevin Chappell to round out my lineup. So, in the words of Spencer, this draft and team is ruined for all time. Really, really like Kevin Chappell. Obviously, has won here previously. I'll just note that his finishing rounds have been very, very good of late, and that's what catches my eye with him. Is that when he's making cuts, his round 3 and round 4 scoring average has been extremely good. Like, I mean, we're talking like in the top 5 of the entire PGA Tour. And he did the same last week. He finished with a 4 under, which was the 8th best round in the final round. So he's willing to go low over the weekend and really chase a victory. I think he's looking for that rebound. I will be having words with Seth later.
It's happening right now, actually, as it turns out.
Yeah, I really like the Chappell play. That would have been how I would have liked to have rounded out this lineup, but I've got lots of options in that 6K. I actually think the 6K is quite intriguing for me this week. Bear in mind, I just carry on with this briefly, that the average winning price here has been 150 for 6 out of the 11 winners here of late, and there was a 7th, which was Martin Laird at 100 to 1. So it's a triple figure tournament in general. Like, it's pretty volatile, it's pretty random. I'm quite happy leaving a lot of money on the table, and I'm quite happy diving into that 6K range like often and picking up some guys with decent upside, of which Kevin Chappell is one.
Funny you should mention 150 to 1, because for those of you that came late to the show, David, you picked JJ Spawn last year at Valero, and what were his odds to win again?
It was 151.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, Spencer, you got 2 picks to go. You got a nice little team. How are you going to round it out?
I'll keep this very short. So I'm going to take Andrew Putnam at 7,800. I do worry about the weighted proximity numbers that I have for him, but 8th in my model in weighted GIR percentage. I'm hoping that can help alleviate some of the problems there. We know the off the tee stuff with him is always more of a concern, but I don't know. I mean, at this track, I think we can get around it a little bit still. 13th in my model in weighted putting from 5 to 15 feet. That's not going to come as a shock. He's a great putter at the end of the day, but it's really that like overall bogey avoidance, the scrambling, the sand save percentage. It's all those back end factors. Like, he's one of those. I know I said I was going to keep this short, by the way, and this has already gone on longer than I was hoping for, but there's so many high end numbers that I have for him that I'm willing to take a shot with him. I don't think the ownership is all that egregious. And then for my final play, like, to me, it's either Alex Smalley or Robbie Shelton. I think those are the 2 guys that I would be most intrigued with. I'm going to go with the player that I seem to go with every single time. I'm going to take Alex Smalley, and I'm going to hope that his ball striking acumen at some point wins one of these tournaments.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Smalley really popped in the first model that I ran, and usually the first model is the only model that I run, because I don't really refer to it too much towards the end of my research. But Smalley was way up there, and I was like, man, am I going to have to play Smalley this week? And I just might, because he really popped in a lot of important ways. So interesting pick there. David, real quick, yes or no on Putnam, yes or no on Smalley?
Yes on Putnam, indifferent on Smalley.
Okay. So I have 8,300 left, and I see a lot of guys I can take. One guy that led me to a near outright 2 weeks ago, and one guy that is just a ball striking phenom, but he just simply can't putt. And the way I've constructed my lineup, I have tried to avoid the really poor putters. And I'm not going to say, okay, well, 5 out of 6 ain't bad. I'm just going to be somewhat consistent with that. So instead of taking, all table talk here, I don't know if anybody's going to draft him. Instead of taking Aaron Rye, who the ball striking should be absolutely phenomenal, but something is going on with the putter with him. It's just kind of horrific. I'm going to go with a guy that the ball striking numbers never look good, but somehow his finishing positions look really good, and it's Adam Schenk. A guy that has the requisite short game to succeed here, even if he's not good off the tee and not good on approach. I'm just taking the gamble that the short game with him is going to pay off yet again. We know he's a winner, not literally, but we know he can close. He was very, very close to winning. Really unfortunate not to win that tournament where he finished in second. And prior to that, he had a miscut, a 31st, 42nd, 50th, 20th. He's making cuts in good fields at that. So I'll go ahead and round out my lineup with Adam Schenk. I really like how this one turned out. So I'm happy with it overall. Dave, before you give me your pick, and you won't offend me, Adam Schenk, yes or no?
Yes, I think he's a good pick. I like some of his correlating form at the Phoenix Open and at the Shriners. I think those are a couple of courses that you can look at towards TPC San Antonio, and he's finished a 7th here before, and obviously he's in decent form because he was second at the Valspar, which wasn't the worst field that we're going to see all year by any means. And yeah, look, I put Schenk in the same kind of bracket as the argument I've made recently for Taylor Montgomery. It's like, yes, he does a lot of it with the short game, but it's consistent and it's over such a long period of time that it's kind of like a Taylor Montgomery, Denny McCarthy situation where like he's just a very good putter and he's a good chipper, and that's a good thing around this course.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dave, you got one more pick. What's it going to be?
Yeah, so I'll take Kevin Chappell in with my final pick, please.
Yeah, that's not going to work because
Okay.
I've got Kevin Chappell.
That didn't work then. Well, in that case, I will go to Texas College alumni. There's very, very good links. Wait, this is the 3rd oldest tournament on the PGA Tour, just in case you guys didn't realize that. It's one of the historic original tournaments on the tour, the Texas Open. And there's very, very strong links to Texas golfers playing well around here. And that goes beyond just the obvious ones to guys like Steve Baldwin who managed to win here as well. So for them, this is a very, very important tournament. I'm going to take a player who actually had a sterling college career, won the Ben Hogan Award in 2018, has perhaps struggled a little bit since moving up into the professional ranks, but I see little things for me that are turning him into form, and that's Doug Gim, the Gim Reaper.
Where has he been? I mentioned him on the first cut. Like, he's a guy that just faded away, and we expected him to start making like some sort of upward move, and it just never happened. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but carry on Doug Gim. Yeah,
I mean, he was former world number 1, right? So as an amateur. Number 1 amateur ranked golfer in the world. Texas College alumni, had a stunning amateur career, made the jump, and I think that obviously you can make all the excuses in the world for him of whether COVID affected that jump up to the professional ranks or anything of the like. But he's a resident of Las Vegas. He actually rooms with Mav McNeely, member at TPC Summerlin, so he's got a lot of experience on the desert courses, and this for him, for one of the better word, is his home course of away, being alma mater from University of Texas. So look, there's 16th last week at the Punta Cana and 27th at the Valspar. So looks like the form's improving a little bit. His driving accuracy is peaking a little bit as well. It's going to be, as always with the Gim Reaper, it's the putter. It's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting selection. I definitely think there's some upside there. Has Team Audience nominated and confirmed? No, we have a couple of nominations here. I see Ben Griffin, Akshay Bhatia has been nominated. Do we have seconds for either of those two guys? Ben Griffin's an interesting one. Oh, Brent says we got froze out of the I don't know what that means, but looks like Ben Griffin is being nominated by Brent Harris and Byron. So I think it's Ben Griffin is their final guy, and he fits just nicely in there. So they have a clean $0 left. Ben Griffin's such an interesting case. And I'm going to make it, well, we're going to go to first round leaders in 1 second, but I'm going to make a case for a guy that has a similar sort of track as Ben Griffin. And what I mean by that is he's doing it all with short game as of the last 4 tournaments or so. But we've seen him ball strike it before. It's just lately the ball striking has been really bad. So I think it's kind of a good mix for Ben Griffin in DFS in particular, where he could crash and burn because the ball striking simply isn't there. But if he can find his ball striking and he remains like the putter and the around the green game guy that he is, I mean, he definitely has a ton of upside. So before we take this board down and we go to our first round leaders, Spencer, I'll start with you, and David, I'll close with you. Ben Griffin, yes or no?
I guess I begrudgingly say yes. I don't know what his upside is. I kind of give the same answer that David talked about with Dietrich with it, but my model loves him, and that's good enough for me to keep playing him until something changes.
David?
Yes, for me as well. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's going to end up being a no for me. I think if he was super low owned, I'd consider, but I do like the upside of Ben Griffin. So I'm okay with the place, particularly in DFS or maybe in the outright market, top 5, top 10, that type of thing. All right, let's get to our first round leaders. We can pull this board down and we're back. Let's give it a shot with David first. David, you got any first round leaders for us?
Yeah, I've got a few that I'd like to give out. So I've got Dylan Fratelli, another University of Texas guy, going off in the morning at 100 to 1. I'll point out that he was 8th last year and he's been in dreadful form. I've got Kevin Chappell at 100 to 1, again going off in the morning. So preferring those lighter wins in the morning there as well. The other one is I just want to check the tee time on.
And while you're checking that, David, it does appear that as of right now, and we'll confirm in our Discord tomorrow night, that there might be a slight advantage right now to Thursday AM, Friday PM, right?
Yes, yep. I'm seeing a decent Thursday AM, Friday PM at the moment, but bear in mind it looks pretty changeable. There are some thunderstorms in the area potentially on Thursday afternoon, and that could just end up flipping the whole thing completely around. So it's worth bearing that in mind as well. The other guy, was Nick Hardy at 66 to 1, also going off in the morning.
Okay. All right. So Spencer, those were David's first round leader picks. What do you got?
I have 5. So I have Nick Taylor at 65 to 1, Andrew Putnam 70 to 1, Joseph Bramlett 95 to 1, Mark Hubbard 130 to 1, and then Alex Smalley 80 to 1. I'm going to keep doing that every single week until it hits at some point.
Well, Smalley was almost one of my first round leaders. I got to be honest. I like, this is maybe the first time this has ever happened, so I'm just going to admit it. I usually know like every single name that's in the tournament. It didn't even occur to me that Mark Hubbard was in this tournament. Where is he on the DraftKings board? I just didn't see him I see him, 6,900. By the way, Pearson Coody is interesting. I know Stephen Pilardi was in the chat mentioning him. I think Kazuki Higa is interesting as well. If you're speculating in the 6K range, before I get to my first round leaders, Spencer, yes or no on Higa?
I don't have enough data. I'm going to say no based off of that because he's outside the top 100 of my model.
David?
Kazuki Higa is like 83rd in the world at the moment, 81st in the world. And he's in the 6K range in a field that has like barely any golfers in the top 100. Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's got the requisite upside for an absolute flyer from the 6K. I'm surprised his ownership's only 3% is what I'm seeing at the moment. Like, I think that should be.
Yeah, because and I think it's because people are looking at him and they're just not seeing any course history. They're not seeing any recent history because, of course, he's doing things on different tours, not just the Euro Tour, but I think in the Asia Tour, he's doing most of his damage as well. So he's just to most people, he's such a speculative play. They're not willing to go in on it, I'm guessing.
I'll give as well, like he won the Dunlop Phoenix, which is like the premium tournament on the Japanese tour. Like the guys in that field included the likes of Tom Kim, included the likes of Mito Pereira. So, I mean, he's beating like really, really good players, and he's coming across to a very weak PGA Tour event. And I think that the only reason he's priced the way it is because DraftKings aren't going to read this in the context of, this is a guy who plays the majority of his golf on another tour and he's actually killing it over there. They're reading in the context of like he's played 2 PGA Tour events of late, and like he was 72nd at the Sony and like 36 at the Zozo. So they're going to look at that and just be like, oh, okay, we'll put him in the 6K range, rather than realizing that there's actually a hell of a lot of upside there potentially.
All right, so I'll give out my first round leaders. I've got Matt Kuchar at plus 5,000, 50 to 1. Matt Wallace, 55 to 1. Ben Martin, 80 to 1. And then I'm going to give out 2 bombs before I give out the easy button play. The 2 bombs they're always going to be in the triple digits. One of them was mentioned, Kevin Chappell at 110 to 1. The other one is Ben Taylor at 110 to 1. I think Ben Taylor tracks like Ben Griffin, but maybe to a lesser extent, where the short game has been really good with him, but for some reason the ball striking just hasn't been there. I don't think he could necessarily just all of a sudden find the ball striking for 4 rounds, although I think it's possible. I think his outright odds are in that 130 to 1 range. I think Ben Taylor is live for a first round leader because we know he can do it with the short game. We've seen it before with the ball striking. So Ben Taylor, Kevin Chappell, both at 110 to 1. Ben Martin, 80. Matt Wallace, 55. Matt Kuchar, 50. And then the last guy, This is the 6th guy, but again, I'm just throwing in 2 bombs at the end. So there's really kind of 4 with double digits and then 2 bombs with Ben Taylor and Kevin Chappell. This guy can't putt. He can't putt. But can he putt for one day? These are all AM guys. So hopefully the ball striking is so good where he is just on the right level and he nails some putts. Maybe he holes out somewhere and just gets really lucky, because we know that can happen too. It's Aaron Rai at 70-1. He is going to be your first round leader come Thursday at the Valero Texas Open. We are 2 days away from Thursday. And I'm telling you right now, Aaron Rai is your first round leader. Bet on the other guys too, because they'll probably be tied for first with Aaron Rai. But before we get out of here, Spencer, what are we looking forward to? Any comments, any concerns? What is the guy you're going to have your eye on the most?
I guess Alex Noren. I think that's a really big way to get different in lineups. So Alex Noren's going to probably be one of my biggest exposure plays compared to the consensus of the market at the end of the day. I know I'm a little bit different than you guys, it seems, on Adam Schenk, where I'm fading him with Nick Taylor, but those are kind of like the 2 areas where are going to be the deciding points for me early in the week.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm not highly confident in Adam Schenk, and I'm not taking him in the betting market. I'm really probably just taking him a little bit in DFS, and I do like him in the lineup that I constructed. David, same question for you. Who you kind of focused on? Anything you're looking forward to or weary of?
I mean, I'm just going to respond to Byron's comment here and just let him know that actually New Zealand, we're 3 days in the future to the USA, and I've already seen who the first round leader is, and I can confirm that Sarah is correct. It is Aaron Rice. So just so you guys know that does happen. So
yeah, I didn't know that. You should have told me that earlier. All these weeks I've been waiting and sweating these first round leaders. Granted, we hit them every time, but it would have been nice. Oh, you're just trying to like have me have a suspenseful moment.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, I just want to give you guys the excitement of a sweat for the first round leader. But yeah, it's right. Again, there you go.
You're a sweet man. You are a really sweet man. Okay, that is the Win Daily Sports Show. Of course, next week is the Masters. So obviously you're going to want to tune in. We'll have a guest that everybody is going to know for the Masters, of course. And Joel will be back for that show as well. We're going to do deep dive like we always do. We're going to draft our teams. Hopefully everybody can make it. When you do, obviously hit the like button. Spencer, is there anything I forgot? I know Joel usually closes the show. Did I forget anything?
I think you forgot one thing. First of all, Jason Day, we know, is back. Jason Day, somebody asked the question. Jason Day, I do have a ticket for him on the Masters. I do think he is very, very, very live.
And David, did I forget anything else?
What's the word for sports?
That's right. Sports.